Our latest conversation is the first community spotlight episode of 2024 to highlight the Cody Barrasse Foundation. We were honored to sit down with Cody Barrasse's mother, Linda, his father, Michael, and his brother, Joe, to discuss his life and the foundation they've created to honor him. In this episode, we discuss who Cody was as a person, a joyful contrarian with a unique view of the world who was loved by so many, how and why the foundation was started after Cody's passing, why estate planning goes far beyond topics related to money, and the importance of having difficult conversations with our loved ones proactively. We also discuss why organ donation awareness is such a critical aspect of the foundation's mission. For instance, while over 90% of Pennsylvanians are in favor of organ donation, only 52% are registered organ donors. Finally, we discuss the huge impact the foundation has had on our community over the years, where your donations go, and the annual event they'll be hosting to benefit the foundation on August 10th. Thanks again to the Barrasses for sitting down with us, and we hope you enjoy this episode. So we are here today to record an episode with the Barrasse family. We want to talk about the Cody Barrasse Foundation, the event we're having this year, and I think most importantly, talk about Cody's life. So first of all, thank you guys for being here, and thank you for doing this today.
Thank you.
We're thrilled to be here, Michael.
And I will say, just off the jump, this is my first episode where there's three people I'm interviewing at the same time. So give me a little room for error here. But I think to start, and Henry is here as well, so we want listeners to know that. But I think to start, I just want to talk about Cody's life, talk about the kind of person he was. Obviously, we knew each other for years growing up when we were little kids running around at the pool or, parties and things like that. But for me, Cody was younger, and at that age, 4 years or whatever it is like
Lifetime.
It's like 14 years, right? So while I knew him a little bit, my brothers, Chris and Peter, knew him better. And I was actually talking to them leading up to this conversation and was just saying, what comes to mind. And they both immediately just launched into two different stories that were just so ridiculous. They're belly laughing right off the jump. And I think, that's kind of how I always pictured him. And I know a lot of people, obviously, who knew him well. And that seems to be, the way that people think about him. So, maybe starting with you, Doctor, what comes to mind when you think of Cody and describing him for a lot of listeners, hopefully, who maybe didn't meet him and are hearing his story for the first time?
Joy. Total joy. He made you laugh. But when he made you laugh, it was from down deep in his soul because he wanted to take care of you. Cody, of all of the people that I've met in life, all of them, and I'm pretty old, Michael, there was no one who was more true to themselves than Cody Barrasse. No one, despite the consequence. He would fight terribly with him, understanding that there was going to be a consequence. But if he felt it was true, he was true to himself. And when I look at him, I look at a person who always had somebody's back, somebody who couldn't have their own back. Mm-hmm. He was there, no matter what race, creed, color, anything. Cody was there. So, for as hard as this has been, losing a son, don't go there. I don't want anybody to go there. I have only joy when I think of Cody. When I cry, it's because I miss him, not because of some weird things that happened in our life. I have only joy.
Yeah. How about you, Judge?
Well, I would add to the joyful part, I would say a joyful contrarian who definitely loved to be in the midst of everything and truly not only had the back, but was really one that was for the underdog. And when Linda said about knowing a consequence was coming, I can remember one time we're saying, like, Cody, you're gonna have to go upstairs now. And his question was, how long? It didn't really, it wasn't let me change my behavior. It was just how long am I going to be up there for?
Yeah.
But he really was not only for underdog, but he would always look at the other side. I can remember having conversations with him about drug dealers. I mean, like he'd say, "Well, sometimes you got to feed your family. Like, what are you gonna do about that?"
Hmm.
And like he'd look at the under issue and say, like, "Well, yeah, but what's the other side of this?"
Yeah.
And
Which is so, ideally you become more like that as you get older.
right.
But for a young kid to have that depth of
And he,
thought at that time is
instead of just
is rare.
riding the wave, he was trying to look at beyond it.
Yeah.
And say, okay, where's this coming from? And I mean, it was always an adventure. I just got back from the shore, and I still now watching my granddaughter, but watching him chase the seagulls. I mean, he was going to get it.
He really thought he was going to get one. He really thought he was going to
wouldn't
get
even
one.
stop.
Yeah.
And the other one is we were up at Lake Scranton, and the three of us were running around the lake, and we get to the end. He says, "We're going to do it again." I said, "Yeah, we'll come down next Saturday again." He said, "No, I mean now." He wanted to run it again. It was like he just didn't stop. And but as Linda said, it was just all joyful. I mean, it was all. I mean, there's times with them that it was, you were fighting for your life with them in regard to the thought process, but it was all full of joy and heart, and you always knew that.
How about you, Joe?
When I think of Cody, first and foremost, you think of his smile. He had this unique smile that, on one hand, you were happy when you saw it. On the other hand, you knew something was going on in his head that was probably not good for you.
You know if that was good or bad.
So he, similar to the stories I'm sure your brother shared with you, Cody tended to get himself in situations where there was always an interesting outcome, we'll say. So yeah, I think he
well put.
he made me a better brother and better person. One, from learning how to deal with people, and two, how to talk to someone that is as stubborn as stubborn could be. Cody was a great person, a great friend, a great brother, but he also was a person who had his own thoughts, his own ways of doing things, and it was a pleasure knowing him, and it was, some of the best times of my life with him.
One time, it was right after he took the LSATs. He had to get a job. And so it was time to get a job. He was on him to get a job. I was on him to get a job. And one day he called me at work, which he never did, and said, "Ma, I just figured out what job I'm going to have." He said, "I just got home from the casino. I think I want to be a professional poker player." I said, "I don't think so, honey." He said, "Listen, even if I lose half the time, I'm still making more than the minimum wage."
No, Mom, you're not understanding. Oh man.
And his card playing was
He was
amazing.
people prohibited their kids from playing with him because
Really?
he robbed them.
We got phone calls from parents.
My child is not allowed to play poker with Cody.
Some of the families you know well.
Yeah. We'll talk about that off camera. So I think, and it's so, when preparing for this conversation, even in Joe, you and I talking, like it's emotional, and it's hard, but I think seeing the joy that comes out, not only when, just listening to all of you, but I mentioned some of the friends of Cody's that I've become close with over the years, and just seeing people light up when his name comes up has to make it, just a little bit easier.
That's what he did. He lit up a room.
Yeah.
He lit up a room. And, we will not accept the world not knowing who Cody was. So for us, this brings us joy through our sorrow. This is how we honor our son and our brother. Mm-hmm. That people like you are interested in letting the rest of the world know who our son was. So is it hard? Sure. Every day we wake up, it's hard.
Yeah.
But every day we wake up, we are determined to keep his spirit alive in this universe.
The part that I wanted to get into next, it's interesting how it's like the deepest version of a big part of our job, right? So with in being advisors, you get to know people at a very deep level, right? You're talking about very personal things often. And I think a lot of these topics, whether it's money or family dynamics or leaving things to people, the estate planning stuff gets put on the back burner because you're talking about mortality, right? Like you're talking about really difficult things. And so talking about money is hard, but talking about what we're about to get into is just a whole other level. And frankly, you know, in preparing for this conversation, I realized how ignorant I was to a lot of the things that people should talk about with their family. So the main things I wanted to get into related to estate planning goes well beyond money. But after Cody's passing, can you talk about how you came together as a family and made those decisions and what that experience was like for you and how it was made easier in some ways and how it was difficult?
Yeah. So, on one hand, it was a forced kind of decision. We didn't have a choice but to make one. We all got the call that my brother was in an accident in Pittsburgh. So the three of us all had to get to Pittsburgh. I remember my mom calling me the middle of the night. I happened to I had a rugby game the next morning, so I left the bar early to go home and get a little bit of sleep, which was not normal on a Friday night.
Not for you.
Yeah, and so luckily she called. It was I think 2 or 3 in the morning. I woke up and was able to get in my car and drive to Pittsburgh and met both my parents out there. I beat them by a little bit just because I think I was a little bit closer from coming from DC. After we talked to the medical staff, it became pretty apparent kind of what choices we'd have to make. And I remember kind of the medical staff walked us through some options and gave us a little room kind of around this size. And I remember us talking. My brother had a conversation with my mom very shortly before his accident, very poignant about this, and I'll let her kind of go into that a little bit more. But, it wasn't a conversation I thought I'd ever have to have about my brother when I was, 25. But there we were. And knowing that my brother talked to my mom about it made that conversation much easier. I think we all kind of knew what he would have wanted, whether or not that conversation happened or not. But knowing those words actually came out of his mouth made things significantly easier for us because it wasn't a maybe, maybe not. It was, this is definitely what he wanted.
Yeah.
So I'll let her kind of go into it a little bit more.
So it was his 22nd birthday, which is February 9th. We were coming from someplace. He was laughing. I was laughing, coming down Music Street. And he said, Ma, I need to talk to you about something. I said, what, honey? And I was driving. He was shotgun. He said, you got to look at me. I said, I'm driving, Code. No, he said, I got to tell you now. I said, what, honey? He said, if something ever bad happens to me, really bad, that I can't be just like this. And if you knew Cody, he was in really great shape. He was a great athlete. If I can't be just like this and my brain can't think just like I'm thinking, don't ever let anybody keep me alive.
Wow.
So that's not exactly what you think you're going to hear from your 22. It's a little peculiar.
Yeah.
And, Michael's dad had a very suffering death. I didn't know if he was thinking about Pop.
Mm.
He had known many of my transplant patients I didn't know if he was thinking about that. I didn't know what he was thinking about. I said, well, Cody, you know my feeling about end of life, that this is not about how long you live. It's about your quality of life. But you're going to be making those decisions for me. I'm not going to ever be making those decisions for you, honey. He said, Mom, look at me. I said, what? He said, you have to promise me you will never let anybody keep me alive.
Wow.
I said, I promise. Then he says, and you know what? I said, what? He said, and give everything inside me away. Everything. Somebody else can use it.
That's crazy.
Who does that? And knowing Cody, as you guys know Cody, that is not what he would typically be talking about. But as his mother, Cody was like an old man in a little kid's body from the time he was little. So he was much deeper than he would let people know. And his deepness came out in his actions, not his words. But that particular day, they came out in his words.
Hmm.
So, I heard what he said. And then we were in this room, like Joseph said, and I told him the story. Now, if it were up to me, I would have always thought of donation, but Michael may not have, Joseph may not have, and Cody, that was a God-given moment that Cody prepared us for the things we needed to do 8 weeks later.
That's crazy.
And he, at the age of 22, made it easier for his brother and his parents. What a gift.
Yeah.
We didn't have to make a decision. He made it for us.
Yeah. Yeah, the burden when you're dealing with something that tragic, and that the burden it puts then to make additional decisions in when you're in
Yes.
shock is so hard, but it happens every day.
Every day.
Um,
Right now, somebody's making that decision.
Yeah. Talk about the story you told me about the medical ethics class you taught.
Oh, yeah. For several years, I was asked to go and speak with the medical ethics class at the University of Scranton. And I would talk about the medical ethics of transplantation and organ donation. So what I would do is I would present the case and go over the philosophic merits through how the case worked through. And then I would dovetail it. By the end of the discussion, the students would know that this was my son. And at the end of the discussion, I would hand out to all of them one of these green bracelets that say Donate Life. And I would say to them, listen, part of the purpose of this discussion is that you need to start thinking about what you want in this life and how you want to live it and how you want to end it. And all I ask you to do is every time you look at the bracelet is to think about Cody and smile, but also to think about how you're going to handle your own death and to talk to your parents, talk to your spouses, talk to your girlfriends, talk to anybody who loves you and tell them what your wishes are. Because if they don't know, then they have to guess.
Yeah.
So, class ended. I went my way. Many, many months later, this guy says to me, Ma, I met this guy in a bar last night, and he had 2 green bracelets on. And they introduced one another to themselves to one another. They both had green bracelets on. And the short story is that this young man wore 2. One was the one I gave him, and the other was the one he wore in memory of his father, who died 6 months after my class.
Wow.
And what he said to me was that he would have never thought about organ donation if he had not heard it in that class. Please understand, I am not anybody special. The whole idea is we need to talk about it. If we don't talk about it and have shows like this where we bring it to people's forebrains to say, oh man, that's something I should be thinking about. That to me, mission was accomplished.
Yeah.
That one person had the courage to say, we're donating Dad's organs, and here's why. We don't need our organs in heaven.
Yeah. And I think for me, and I mentioned this to you before, and for my partners and Alliance in general, like if one conversation happens that maybe wouldn't have before we sat down here, like then all of this is the best hour I could have spent. And even for my own family, as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking like there are some conversations that need to happen, and it's important. So how do people start these conversations? If somebody's asking you that, what do you tell them?
So I guess first step, easy step, when you go to get a new ID, when you go to PennDOT and you're filling out your application to be a driver's license, there's a box you could check that says you want to be an organ donor. So that is a quick, simple way to kind of notify the general public that's what you'd like to do. But it doesn't stop there. You need to then go ahead and talk to your loved ones. Let them know this is what your wish is. Like you said, that's not an easy conversation to have, but it's a conversation you only need to have once.
That's a good way to put it.
If your thoughts change, you could update it, but it's an hour, a half hour, 15 minutes to sit down with your loved ones, let them know, hey, I made this choice. This is what I would like. And then they could respond in kind. It opens the door to a broader discussion. When you're thinking about, you start a new job and you need to think about, where would my life insurance go? It at certain kind of gating points in your life, there are times when it makes sense to do it, but the conversation could happen at any point, whenever you feel the need to do it. The two of us are rather young, but at the same point in time, I bought a life insurance policy when I had kids, and I've never felt older at the same point in time. So I think as we grow, it is a conversation that is sometimes a little tricky to start, but you figure a way to kind of open that door and do it.
I think in my experience with clients, and not talking about organ donation necessarily, but just when you open the door to a hard topic, it tends to open the floodgates.
Of course.
Right. And so just starting it,
of course,
leads to a domino effect. And, communication and our ability to have hard conversations in life, I think, that is going to directly tell us how fulfilling our life is.
But
go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
the other one, when you look at, is how many, now that I am getting much older, how many friends I know that are in need of organ transplant. And you see what the list is like, and you say, this is not necessary. This shouldn't be this way. So you're literally watching people that need transplants, and you're saying, like, why? And obviously there's a priority and a different way in which it's done. And, if we had ample amounts of transplant organs available, we wouldn't be seeing as many people die. And so, it's got both a personal one, but it also has a societal one that we have to look at overarching to say, we're burying people unnecessarily.
Yeah. And I think, like, no matter what your thought, like, I know I checked the box as an organ donor at the DMV, and like, it's sort of, that's it. That's kind of where it stopped for me.
Mm-hmm.
But if people want to check the other box, like, that's, fine. But if it's because of a lack of awareness, right? Then that's just unnecessary.
Exactly.
To your point, right?
Yep.
Interestingly, if you poll Pennsylvanians, 92% of them say, yeah, we think organ donation is a really great thing. Only 52%
Wow.
are registered with the DMV as organ donors. So part of Gift of Life's, actually it might even be a little bit less, part of Gift of Life's thinking is to try to get more people to register. But as Joseph says, it doesn't stop there. as you said, you did that, and then that's it. The conversation doesn't have to be as hard as you may think. It can be framed completely positively. In that, look at the gift Cody gave us. He took that burden away from us.
Mm-hmm.
You start the conversation by saying, say it's a mother to a kid. Joseph, you know what? I've been thinking about this. And at the end of this journey, whenever it is, a day, a week, when I'm 100, whenever it is, I don't want you to be left with the burden of having to figure out what I want or what I don't want. So I got to tell you, this is not morbid. I'm not signing up to go. This is just something I want to make sure you know. And he does. I mean, way before Cody passed, and so did Michael. We made our living wills when we were in our young 30s. Probably,
and that's
probably
that's so
the
rare.
probably
No one-
very rare. But
Yeah.
it was very important to me and to Michael that we did that.
Yeah.
But the conversation, you can frame it in a positive way. You don't have to be morbid about it, and you don't have to pretend like you're dying. You're not. That's the whole beauty of it. You're not.
What do you think the difference what accounts for that difference of 92% of people are for it, 50% of people are doing it? Is that
It's
awareness?
Some
awareness.
awareness and ignorance, and also some people just not knowing whether or not. For some people, they thought there was religious reasons not to do it, and that's really there's very few religions that have that. And second is in regard to the way the system was set up in different beliefs. But over the years, I think they've done a very good job at showing how successful the whole program is, and that there is no demons or anything. So you've got to face the elephant in the room. There has been in the past some questions about the whole delivery system involved with it. But those days are long, long past. And in fact, that to me is just an excuse why you're not doing it, not like a rationale of why you're not, but not really a real reason.
Have you been to the DMV lately?
No.
Okay.
And
Take a trip.
okay.
Take a trip.
Do I have to?
And look at what happens there. All right. So, and people who work in organ donation lives like I do have been fighting for this, but they barely mention check off the box. So first, you've waited in line a real long time. You're not happy when you get there.
You're not thinking about doing
there's,
that.
And there's somebody on the other side saying, stand over there and let me take your picture. So it's great that it's there because we'd have nothing if it weren't there. But just think about what happens in the DMV. It's not a pretty picture. So
a lot of listeners are just shuddering at the thought of having to go renew their license.
Right, especially on a Saturday if they're on their way now. So that's part awareness, and then the implementation of the act. How do you get somebody to act? If you took 100 people today that went for their driver's license and had a discussion with them before they went up there and said, they're going to ask you about organ donation, and here are the reasons why you should consider it, we would be well above 50% of people hitting that box.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame.
So we have work to do. And I mean, it's been 10 years ago, we were probably in the 40s of people who actually hit that little box. So
last year, the year before, they had Cody's poster up in the DMV.
it might still be there.
Yeah, he's literally the poster boy.
Yeah. So,
but how many people I know that have gone there that said, I saw your son's poster and it made me think of it. So again, it's awareness.
So that's why I think it doesn't happen. But we'll keep working.
When we were having this conversation, when Joe and I were just kicking this idea around, one of the things that he said that stuck out is like, we want to talk about Cody and we want to talk about the estate planning and organ donation, but also, like, he was like, I wrote it down. My brother wouldn't want us to be making people sad all the time. And so what was important to me to have a big part of this conversation was to talk about the foundation. We'll talk about the event, so listeners can come out and support it, hopefully. But also talk about the impact, because some of the things that you told me as I was getting ready to have this discussion, like, really took me by surprise in terms of what you've been able to do since starting the foundation. But before going into that, I wanted you to tell us the story about 7 on the 7th
7 on the 7th.
and how the foundation came to be.
Why don't you start with the book, Mom,
So-
and then I'll.
When Cody died on April the 7th, I was very determined to keep these kids together. Remember, most of these young men and women had hardly been to a funeral home, let alone buried somebody they loved. And I felt strongly about them not feeling afraid to come to the house that most of them lived in like their own. So on May the 7th, I decided to have dinner for who's ever in town. Some of them were graduating, some of them were about to graduate. I had no idea how many were going to come. 50 people showed up.
Wow.
And I made vodka sauce, which was one of Cody's favorites. And we sat and talked and cried and laughed. And during that dinner, 2 of the guys approached me and said, "Mrs. B, we really need to do something in Cody's memory. What would you think of a 3-on-3 basketball tournament?" So there were not many things that he liked to do more than 3-on-3 because he could push as many people around as he wanted. There were no fouls. So he was very
I can
happy
relate to that style
playing
of play.
3-on-3. So that's where the seed was planted. And then it continued. And I could let Michael and Joseph tell you a little bit about where we went from that very first dinner.
Well, Joe,
Yeah, so the first year it was really mostly some of Cody's close friends that kind of got the ball rolling. They kind of had the idea, like my mom said. We worked with them and worked with some of the people over at Prep to get a basketball tournament going. I think we had around 25 teams play basketball. It was small. We raised few $1,000s, and we kind of thought afterwards, what do we want to do? Our thought process then went to kind of how do we make this grow and where do we want this money to go to? We wanted to give a scholarship to Scranton Prep. I think at the time tuition was 12 grand, give or take. And, our thought process was $1,000 or $2,000 off of that is not going to make somebody's different. Like if you can't afford 12, 10 is probably out of reach as well.
Right, right.
So we really thought, let's make this a full scholarship. So we sat down over the course of the next year and said, how can we make this grow? I think the next year we were up to, 60 to 70 teams play basketball.
and during the time, we also formed the actual foundation and the legal side of it and everything to look at how it was going to be done and to put that into a plan. And Joseph and all the other members that were basically Cody's friends and Joe's friends, put the plan in place. But we also had the legal structure set up for it.
Versus just having the event, having a
Right.
fun day. Like
Right.
now there's an infrastructure in place to where this is a sustainable thing.
And then they had bylaws and a whole entire structure set up and monthly meetings and everything Joseph would hold, and and they ran it.
Yeah, so after a couple of years of playing basketball, we wanted to kind of broaden our reach a little bit, and that's when the Continue Cody's event or commitment event started.
Did it have anything to do with your basketball skills?
Diminishing?
Yeah.
Maybe. We were looking around the room. We were getting older, and the people with actual checkbooks don't really play basketball. So they might drop their kids off to play, buy a couple shirts. But we wanted an event that we could get more people at, but also highlight Oregon donation. So that's when we started Continue Cody's Commitment. We wanted to get as many people there as we can and really tell the story of Cody, who he was, and why being an Oregon donor is important. And that was back in, I think, 2018 was our first time doing that. It was at the Leonard, and then it slowly grew. We had it over at the Icebox for a few years. We've kind of bopped around town, and now we're at the Cultural Center for the last several years, and it's been awesome. It's really kind of the highlight of the year for us. It's a time we get to be around all Cody's buddies and really celebrate who Cody was and highlight what we're doing for the community and how much the community is helping us.
I never thought of it, but really, the other beauty of it is if we ever videoed the whole thing, because you've got the team of the ones that are setting up, doing the social work and figuring out how to like make the place look nice. Then you also have the team that's taking down the banners from prep over to the cultural center. Then you have, getting the food from all the different donors it's all community based. So you have all the restaurants involved, but the work that the team puts in, it's beautiful to see. It's not just bringing together friends. It's the relationships that have built up and the work that they do together to make this happen. So it really is like, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, you're doing this and you're doing this, but the fact that those friends year after year after year are still coming and doing all the grunt work.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's a lot of grunt work to be there. Some days it's sweltering heat or raining or whatever it is, and there they are, slopping things in and out of places. It's a lot of work. I mean, it's a commitment. Some of these guys that have spent hours a week. I mean, for long periods of time getting stuff together. But now it's like watching a machine. It's really pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think that is the biggest compliment to Cody is that these people are willing to do this year in and year out, and it keeps getting bigger. And because these charity events, they're hard to maintain,
Mhm.
and
They
there's
are.
a lot of them,
They are.
and they're all great causes. But it's hard. It's hard to ask people to take on that lift year after
Mhm.
year.
They do it for a single purpose. They loved him. Period. One single purpose.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, what these young people do, and I'm so, so proud of them. There are 2 separate events in 2 separate venues on one day. So last year we had, I think, about 70 teams starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then another event with another 400 people at night at the Cultural Center with a lot of moving parts in between. There are lots of moving parts, and we could not do this without all of these volunteers. Kid volunteers, young adult volunteers, senior volunteers. We have, I am sure, close to 200 volunteers
Wow.
that make this happen. Scorekeepers, people who sell merchandise, the candy stand, selling books, writing out tickets, baskets. You can't imagine the work and the devotion that these people have to making this a success. When the first one happened, we were numb.
Yeah.
We didn't know what end was up. He died in April. The discussion was May. The first tournament was August. With these young, they went door to door with like mimeographed little posters, putting them in
stores and
stores
restaurants
on
and
their
everything else.
own. These young men and women are the foundation of this foundation, and he is like the Pied Piper and leads them with grace.
Talk about the impact that has come from this great event every year in terms of what you've been able to do, and particularly I think how you're filling in gaps, I think is the way you put it to me, because I had and I've played in it before. We've been at the beach, but I follow it and I'm close to so many people who are in it, and I had no idea that any of this was even happening.
So after we started the Continue Cody's Commitment event is when we launched OTAP, which is Organ Transplant Assistance Program. Right now, we've had about 65 different families, mostly in Northeast Pennsylvania, a couple out in Pittsburgh where Cody's accident happened. So we've wanted to keep a small presence there as well. Apply for grants, and the grants are usually between $1,000 to $3,000 a piece per year. So we've been very lucky with the support we've gotten from the community and the word of mouth to spread this to people that need it. So one of the things we do is we try to help these families that are going through organ transplantation. It's a long process. They have trips to Hershey, to Philadelphia, to kind of wherever their major transplant institute is. They go back and forth, whether it be weekly, whether it be monthly. Some of them are on medications for the rest of their lives. So the bills don't really stop 1 year, 2 years, 3 years later. Insurance has a role, but there's a lot of things insurance just doesn't cover. We try to kind of fill those gaps be there for what they need so they could focus on the things that matter, like them getting healthy, then taking care of their families, getting back to work. We don't want finances to be the thing that distracts them from getting healthy again. So we've done things like help pay for specialized diet plans, help pay for transportation back and forth to the hospital, help pay for their medications. You name it, we've been there to anything that's transplant related. We're there to help. So if you know somebody, if you have a friend that's going through this, tell them to apply to our foundation.
And where can they find
So
on the website?
on our website, there's a link right there to apply for both you or if your loved one's going through it and you want to apply on their behalf. Both options are there. It's a pretty easy process. After the application's in, someone from our team reaches out to kind of just go over what the needs might be, and then it goes to a committee that decides kind of how much. I don't think to date we've had anyone rejected. Um, we raise this money from our community to put it back into our community to help out. It is our goal is to get as much money back into the community as possible, and we want to be as helpful as possible and make it as easy for these people going through this transplantation process as possible. So we've been very lucky. There's been students over at the med school that have helped out. Some of Cody's friends at the time were just starting at the medical school, and we thought the committee that had to kind of figure out how much to give to each person, having some medical background would be a good place to start.
Right.
And so kind of as they went through the medical school, they found some people in the class below them. It kind of happened a little organically at first. Now there's a little bit more structure. But I think that right now there's 6 students over at the medical school that are help us out every day. Each one of them has 5 to 6 patients that they keep in contact with. There's 2 people running it that kind of coordinate that, and then I talk with those 2 people. So it's a full organization
Yeah,
with
that's
a
amazing.
lot of
How much is
touch
infrastructure
points
is there?
that we've been able to put in place over the last 8 years or so.
And the other thing is there's all of the money from the organization stays in the community. There are no administrative costs, their fees. Some of it's worked through the Scranton Area Foundation or whatever, but there is no one that's paid to do anything outside of the basketball tournament and the cultural center. Expenses are there.
Yeah.
Everything else goes back to the community, and that's the nice part even about the food that's donated for the event. I mean, it's the community coming together, and all the funds goes right back to the community.
Yeah, it's amazing how efficient you've made this process and this
Yeah.
foundation.
Like my dad mentioned, the Scranton Area Foundation to us has been extremely beneficial. So all of the money that goes through OTAP has been run through the Scranton Area Foundation. They do all our accounting work. They have made our process and this so much easier. And I can't really thank them enough for the
They're
help
great.
they've
They
given
do
us.
great work. What about the scholarships? So that's the other. There's OTAP,
Yeah.
and then there's the other side of it, because that's
Yeah.
you had started to mention it, but that's not
Another
not a
structure.
Yeah. So we've again been very lucky with the people have gotten it, and so far I think we're on our 6th scholar is going to be entering prep in the fall. When it first started out, like I said earlier, we wanted to have full scholarships. We wanted to make an actual difference in someone's life. Kalia was our first scholar. She was amazing, and since then we just had continue to have great students. So for a while it was every other year. This year will be the first time there's 3 students at prep receiving full scholarships for all 4 years.
wow.
And in 2 years it'll be a scholarship from every class. So there'll be a person in every class from Scranton Prep from here till eternity.
Amazing.
And for the selection process, prep is involved, and really the foundation has very little to do with the selection of the individual. Joseph sits in on some of the selection of the meetings at the end, but again, there's someone designated from prep, and usually their staff, and so it's really amazing to see how the person's selected, and everyone that has been selected so far has been really remarkable. And we have sat down as a family with the recipients at prep
That's really cool.
afterwards, and just to hear from them what their thoughts are. And so it really, the whole selection process, similar to the way the OTAP is run, is there's a structure in place for it to get our students.
And just it's a well-oiled machine to a certain degree at this point, it sounds like.
And his scholarship is not, he would shoot us if it was just based on academic prowess. He Cody was very bright. He was very bright. He would say, "Oh, Mom, Joe's so smart." I said, "Well, don't sell yourself short." He said, "No, Mom, I'm okay. Joe's smart." But the recipient, there are several criteria that this committee looks at that we have made. Basically has to be like Cody. Certainly have the academic capabilities, but not necessarily the valedictorian. They need to have a soul. They need to have people's backs. They need to have demonstrated in their young life up through 8th grade that they have the spunk and the spirit that Cody had.
Yeah.
And we have been very fortunate with some of these young people. Kalia has graduated from Westchester and has started her own business.
Wow.
Our next scholar is now at Virginia Tech studying to be an engineer. Number three is in Utah studying, I forget his major.
I don't know.
And
either.
4 and 5 are still at prep. The last one from last year, his family emigrated just a few years ago from Africa here. And this family would have no way to have given this young man an opportunity to have a Jesuit education if it weren't for Cody's.
And he's truly a gentleman and just the nice,
Sweet.
nice.
They're all
man.
they're great, and they represent, because we tell them very clearly, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing Cody. Don't forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't forget it. So, it's been a great ride,
Amazing.
and I'm so proud. These kids have raised enough money now that the scholarship will go on in perpetuity.
That's crazy.
So to kind of further that point, all of the money we raise from here on out is going strictly to OTAP. So while we still have the scholarships, every new dollar that comes in goes directly to help families that are very much in need in our area.
That was our goal,
Yeah.
to get the scholarship taken care of
Stood up.
and everything else before organ donation.
Yeah. So you mentioned a lot, even just in the last 5 minutes, but over the last whatever it's been in this conversation, I just have one more question, and then we'll talk about the event so people know where to find you and how they can participate. But what is it, if you can pick one thing for each of you that you're most proud of coming out of the experience of Cody's death and everything that's happened between now and then? What are you most proud of what you've been able to do as a family? But you said it goes to a couple hundred people every year, and this foundation's reach is so wide at this point. But what's the one thing that jumps out?
My greatest accomplishments in life are my sons. They're 2, Joseph and Cody. Simple.
That's gonna be a tough answer to beat.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important that now Cody's legacy lives on. It's not just his name; it is what it represents, and the fact that his death brought into action all these other steps. So it's not as though we're saying legacy. We're saying, no, what are the action steps that are from that? And seeing all these people get, whether it's organ donations or whether it be scholarships, it's the actions that are taken by his friends and his family that are really remarkable to watch.
I think I kind of break it down into 2 ways. On a personal note, my ability to have a reason to hang out with my brother's friends every year is awesome. It brings me right back to, when I was 25, Cody was 22. I go visit him at school, hang out with him, hang out with his buddies. Every year I get to kind of do that a little bit again. But on a more foundation level, we just recently had a person that was involved in OTAP pass away. His family reached out to us and really thanked us. And then in lieu of flowers, they donated back to our foundation. So seeing it kind of go full circle like that is, I don't know if validating is the right word, but it's awesome to see that it's starting to become a little bit more self-fulfilling. Like our outreach in the community is starting to pay off. We're getting more people to apply to OTAP. Again, like I said earlier, we raise this money to give it out. It's not raised to make a bank account number grow. It's raised to go right back into our community. Right. And we're happy to see that it's actually making a difference in people's lives. A couple of people that needed their heat kept on because they couldn't be cold in the winter, because it would make them get even more sick. We were able to take care of that, and getting a call saying thank you. Like, I didn't do anything. I literally just passed the check along. We have this massive foundation that does the work. These families are there fighting every day to make sure they're healthy and they're happy, and we're just so happy to be kind of a little piece of that journey for them.
So, talk about the event this year. Where can people find more information, and what's on deck?
Yeah, so this is our 12th event. It's crazy to say it's been that long. You can find some information on our website, CodyBarrasseFoundation.com. There's a link to sign up for basketball, a link to donate. At night, starting at 7 o'clock, we'll have our party over at the Cultural Center, continuing Cody's commitment, like we mentioned in the past. It's really a night for anyone in the community that wants to come out. There's a basket raffle. It's open bar. We have food normally from about 20 to 30 different restaurants in the area. That's all completely donated. They all give us kind of one dish to kind of highlight their restaurant a little bit. So it's very community based. We've got local foods. All the volunteers are local. The money goes right back. Local band. So yeah.
Daddy-O and the Sax Maniacs.
All right.
Can't
go wrong.
And
Can't go wrong with Daddy-O.
They are very kind to us. They make sure that the date is open, and they are, from a financial standpoint, very, very kind to us, and they play great music. It's just a great night, and what makes it different than just a party, Michael, is that at one point, maybe about 2/3 of the way through, we make a video every year that we show to the people who are there. And the video, usually part of it is about Cody, who he was and what he did, and how it affected. Usually there are 3 or 4 of his friends or family who talk about him. And then the second piece usually comes from the people that we have helped in the transplant community, talking how this foundation has helped them specifically. And it's very riveting. And for a lot of people who've not thought about it, they leave saying, whoa, I have to have this conversation. I have to think about it. I have to mark off the box on my driver's license.
Yeah.
So that is a piece that it's not just a party. It is, but it's more than a party.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you all for doing this, but I think what I wanted to thank you for too was this, what you've created and all the good that has come from this is incredible. But I think you mentioned the word community a lot of times, and I think in a time where we need more community and we need more connection, the foundation and Cody and your family have been able to strengthen ours, and so thank you for that, and we'll have a good time at the Cultural Center in a few weeks.
We will.
Thanks.
Thank you
Michael.
very much. Thank you.
The information in this interview is provided for informational purposes only and should not be taken as investment, legal, or tax advice. Opinions expressed in this interview are subject to change without notice. It is important to remember that investment in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal invested. Past performance is no guarantee of future results, and diversification does not guarantee a profit or protect against loss in a declining financial market. Alliance Wealth Advisors is an investment advisory firm that is independently owned and operated. Alliance does not make any representations as to the accuracy, timeliness, suitability, completeness, or relevance of any information prepared by this unaffiliated third party mentioned in this communication and takes no responsibility. For more information regarding Alliance, please visit alliancewealthadvisors.com/legal disclosures. Thank you.